It's Wednesday, July 8th. I'm Lucie Steiner.
And I'm Sam Seder. Which of these stories will you be talking about today?
U.S. coronavirus cases passed 3 million on Tuesday, a grim milestone that we flew past at breakneck speed. Meanwhile, a new report by the Intercept shows that oxycodone death dealer Purdue made political contributions even after it went bankrupt, showing that there are no depths too low for the Sackler family of murderers. And lastly, Tucker Carlson launched a wave of aggressive racist attacks against Senator Tammy Duckworth and Representative Ilhan Omar, who dared to suggest that the U.S. supports a, quote, system of oppression, unquote.
You are listening to Majority FM's AM Quickie, and these are the stories you need to know.
The coronavirus hit a grim new milestone on Tuesday, 3 million cases in the United States alone. According to CNN, the country averaged almost 50,000 new cases per day last week, the rate of a month ago. Texas alone reported more than 10,000 cases on Tuesday. Trump's head of the coronavirus task force, Dr. Barbara Birx, noted that the administration hadn't expected the massive community spread among young people, who had generally been pretty diligent about social distancing. Put this all together, and we've got a horrifying summer ahead. The Trump administration, meanwhile, is following through on its flailing attempts to pass the buck to the WHO, formally announcing on Tuesday that the U.S. will leave the international organization. It's still a mostly empty threat. The U.S. won't back out until April of 2021. So if Trump loses in November, Biden, or whoever ends up in the Oval, could keep us in. But Trump's not content to just sabotage U.S. participation in international organizations. He's actively making the crisis worse at home. The new benchmark the Trump administration wants is for schools to reopen in the fall, which is a step that many schools do not want to do. Yesterday, we talked about the completely absurd student visa rule, which the New York Times reports could be part of Trump's plan to exert pressure on schools to offer in-person classes. In other words, he's holding schools hostage in deportation purgatory to try to force them to reopen in a pandemic. Just so we're clear about what's going on here. Purdue Pharma, the drug company owned for years by the Sackler family, is one of the most evil corporations in the world. That much is not really up for debate at this point. For decades, Purdue almost single-handedly created the modern U.S. opioid crisis by aggressively marketing their deadly narcotic oxycodone to any patient who had so much as a toothache. Last September, Purdue filed for bankruptcy, the product of a mountain of lawsuits filed by cities seeking some sort of justice for the addiction epidemic it unleashed in their streets. But the Sacklers pulled a fast one on the plaintiffs, making off with over $10 billion in company funds. According to a new report by The Intercept, the drug giants still had enough left over to make political donations. The Intercept reports that Purdue gave $50,000 to both the Democratic Governors Association and the Republican Governors Association in December of 2019, months after filing for bankruptcy, and right on time to sway politicians as states decide whether or not to put more taxes on opioids. To date, only 5 states have implemented a tax on opioids. The 50 ground to Dems and Republicans might not seem like much, but remember that Purdue is donating much larger sums to parties involved in these decisions before it got sued into oblivion. The company itself may be bankrupt, but the Sacklers are doing just fine, and their billions will surely keep growing, fed by the blood of the American working class.
Hey, Majority.fm's AM Quickie is fueled by JustCoffee.coop. Just Coffee is a worker-owned coffee roaster based in Madison, Wisconsin, that has sponsored the Majority Report for nearly a decade. Check out their collection of fair trade roasts, including our own Majority Report blend, and regardless of what you order, receive 10% off of your order when you use the code MAJORITY at checkout. All shipping, of course, is free. That's coupon code MAJORITY at justcoffee.coop.
Tucker Carlson is at it again, and by it we mean racism and general bigotry. Imagine that. The latest controversy swept up both Representative Ilhan Omar, a favorite target of the ruling racists in the country, as well as Senator Tammy Duckworth. It all culminated in an unforgettable Tucker moment in which he put up photos of Omar and Duckworth side by side with a full-screen chyron stating, quote, "We have to fight to preserve our nation and heritage," unquote. That's only 10 words, but it's pretty close to white nationalist America's favorite 14-word slogan. It started on Monday night when Carlson mocked Duckworth for saying we needed to have a national conversation about the removal of racist Confederate monuments. Carlson acknowledged Duckworth's military service, but then called her a, quote, "deeply silly, unimpressive person," unquote, and suggested that she hates America. Duckworth, who lost both of her legs in Iraq, shot back on Twitter asking Carlson to, quote, "walk a mile in my legs," unquote. Carlson wasn't cowed and dragged Ilhan Omar into the already stupid hating America controversy on Tuesday night, after the Congresswoman said in a press conference that America had a, quote, "system of oppression," unquote. All of this led to the unforgettable chyron during Tucker's show on Tuesday night. There's some context to this. Duckworth is reportedly on the long or maybe short list for Biden's VP slot, and Omar is one of the racist conservative press's favorite targets. Linking the two of them is probably advantageous to everyone like Tucker, who wants to see Trump get a second term. Let's make sure that doesn't happen, especially to see the look on Carlson's face.
And now, for some quicker quickies.
Quicker Quickie.
The Seattle City Council passed an aggressive new tax on big businesses, with Amazon Square in its crosshairs. According to Common Dreams, the tax will affect corporations with payrolls of $7 million or more, or employees making over $150,000. It's expected to bring in at least $200 million to the city per year. New data published by a team of European researchers shows that the past 12-month period, so from July 2019 to June 2020, was tied with the hottest year ever recorded, based on global surface temperatures. The record high temperatures in Siberia and massive wildfires sure didn't help, and we can expect a lot more where that came from. The military officer who oversaw the brig Chelsea Manning was held in during the early 2010s is running for Congress in Alabama as a Democrat. James Aberhart, who was in charge of the prison where Manning was held in solitary confinement 23 hours a day, received 40% of the vote in Alabama's primary and will go to a runoff with Professor Kiani Gardner on July 14th. New York City saw some of its first post-pandemic grace period evictions on Tuesday. Activists faced off with a landlord in Crown Heights who was attempting to put a family out on the street, calling for an end to evictions until the pandemic recession has passed.
Quicker Quickie.
That's all for the Majority Report's AM Quickie today. We'll have more Sam on Vacation content on the feeds this afternoon. Not content of Sam on vacation literally, but you know what I mean.